the City of Cleveland, the New York Metropolitan Transit Authority, Tesla, numerous hospitals, universities, other cities. What do they all have in common? They use Kronos for their HR needs. The problem was on December 11th, Kronos got hit with ransomware. So let's talk about it. Welcome back. I'm Chris Burns from Techie Gurus. Let's talk about Kronos. I used to do consulting for a company that did some outsourcing for hospitals, and almost all of them use Kronos. And on December 11th, Kronos noticed that there was something going on in their network, and it turned out their entire private cloud was hit with ransomware. That's a problem, right? Right before Christmas, all these companies rely on Kronos for their timekeeping needs. Some of them use them to pay their paychecks. It's down. And the worst part is Kronos is being very quiet about this, and they're not talking about it very much, but they're saying it could be weeks before they're back up and running. So now all of these companies, all of these cities, these universities, these hospitals have to go out and they have to change the way that they do their HR during the holiday season, during the end of the year. Now, people are still going to get paid. There's going to be paper checks that are cut, things like that. But it really highlights the challenges that we have in today's world and in 2021 with what happens when there's a supply chain attack. You could look at Kronos as a supply chain for HR. What happens if it happened to ADP or any other payroll/HR company? 2021 has been the attack on our supply chain. Kronos is a recent example of that, but we can go back to Colonial Pipeline, we can go back to SolarWinds, which affected huge companies, governments. When you use a private cloud service, when you use a public cloud service, there is an inherent risk to doing that. And I don't think people necessarily have always thought about it that way. In 2018, InSync got hit, not the band, got hit with ransomware. And they did hosting of like QuickBooks and tax software and things like that for accounting professionals. They were down for weeks. One of our customers, their accountant, their accounting firm that does all of their books for them, was down for weeks because of that. It's chaotic. It's catastrophic. So it's up to us to question when we use a company, how are you protecting our data? One of Kronos' responses was, hey, you should just do your incident response plan. That's cool. What's yours? Because clearly it didn't work. When they say it's going to take weeks to come back up, that's probably because it's so catastrophic in their environment. They're going to have to pull from tape, which they may have to recall. They're probably going to lose a bunch of data. And reality strikes when this comes down to the end of it. What we're going to find out is probably somebody was in their network for days or weeks. They were doing recon. They were planting seeds. They were seeing what they could get access to. They were seeing what data they could steal, what data they could exfiltrate. And then we're going to see what the actual fallout from this attack is. Not just the fact that it's a short-term fallout of where we're talking about, hey, people can't get paid or we can't keep track of time and now we have to go back to manual processes. But what happens when all that data was stolen? When you have HR data, you have critical private data. It's going to be considered a breach. Now, we don't know what the ransom is. They won't say. Kronos is being very quiet about this. They're kind of trying to hide from this. But that's the questions we got to ask is what was your plan? Because clearly their plan didn't work. So they need to learn from this and they need to grow from this. But how many customers are they going to lose because they just violated their trust? Something failed. And eventually we'll figure out what failed. But until then, this is the time that we need to take to reflect on our businesses and look at it from that perspective. Do we have a plan when something goes wrong? Because when something goes wrong, what happens is we become emotional or we pause. We freak out. We can't act. That's the wrong time for that to happen. So take this and use this to look at creating an incident response plan in your company so when something bad happens, regardless of whether it's a cyber attack, maybe it's something with a fire or whatnot, use this time to really sit down and plan. What do you do? Make a checklist. It can be short. It doesn't have to be that long. It's a growing document. It's an ever-changing document. So let's learn from this. I will give you an update when I can. Like I said, they're being quiet about this. So I appreciate you. Until next time, stay cyber safe.